Hello. My name is Callista, and welcome back to When the Night Comes. In the last episode, we were introduced to Raven, Finn's daughter, I guess you could call her. He sired her, at the very least. And we were about to ask him if he'd be willing to get on board with our plan to break into the dungeon. You know what, I'll reread this. We're kindred spirits, I guess. As much as I have regret for cursing her with immortality, she's the closest thing I have to a family. Now, what brings you to my neck of the underworld? He leans back against his desk. Yeah, we need your help, please. I want to flirt. I said it before. It was Finn and August. They were the two that I was most drawn to. However, August gets me so flustered. I can't not go with them at this point. So as much as I want to go with I need you, I am going to be polite, be professional, and not flirt with everything that... I was going to say everything that breathes. Finn doesn't really breathe, though. He's a vampire, but you get what I mean. We're just going to ask for his help. I have a plan, and I think I might need your help to execute it. He tilts his head, curiosity obviously piqued. A plan? I do love those. Tell me, what can I do? Don't you want to know the finer details first? He shrugs, running his tongue over his bottom lip. Makes no difference to me. I trust you implicitly. If it means I can help you in any way, I'm all ears. Just tell me where you need me. Oh, I love how Finn is just like, yep, I'm there. Don't need to be told what I'm doing. Just like, let me at it. Oh, Finn. Bravo. Piper and I are going to attempt to break into the dungeons beneath HQ. His pointy ears flicker, almost flattening against his head before they put themselves to rights. He can't seem to mask his surprise, nor his apparent interest. The dungeons, He whistles, scuffing his boots against the stone floor. I can help you, but I may have a favour of my own to ask you if you're bold enough to venture down there. I narrow my eyes at him, contemplating if I want to tangle myself into yet another web. I mean, we're asking him to do a favour. It'd be pretty rude of us to be like, oh, you can do stuff for us, but I'm not going to do anything for you. So I'm inclined to go along with it, as long as it's nothing too illegal. What is it? He pushes away from the desk, standing tall.
An important member of my clan has gone missing, and I'm positive that they have him. As I'm sure you know, any trust for the enforcers is wavering. I want my friend back. He's done nothing to warrant being thrown in a dungeon.
Okay. His hands ball into fists at his side, his prosthetic flaring brightly before it fades into its usual dormant, dull glow. How do you know that they have him? I don't. They have an excellent defense system that prevents any of us from detecting him, no matter how close we manage to get. He would not just abandon us. He's either detained or dead, and if it's the latter... I just want to know. You're sure he wouldn't just leave? Your clan isn't like others. Maybe he wanted a change. He looks frustrated. He runs his fingers through his hair, leaving it messy.
Fierro wouldn't just leave. I know he wouldn't. I trust him more than anyone else in my clan, even Raven. We both suffered at the hands of Levi for centuries. We were healing from that together. He was the only friend I had when I was with Levi, and he saved me more than once.
Fair.
I owe him this. If he's ash and bone in a forest somewhere, then so be it. But if he's okay, then I must save him. The only family creatures like me have are the ones that you find, so I intend to keep them safe as long as I can.
Ask about Levi, ask about Fiyero. I'm kind of drawn to asking about Fiyero. I'm interested in learning about Levi. I would assume that Camille would at least know something. If he was a very powerful vampiric lord that, like, you know, he did a load of awful shit and then Harry was the one who killed him. I remember that. It was either August or Finn mentioned that Harry killed Levi. Like, you'd assume that Camille would at least know a little bit about Levi. So as much as I want to know about this guy, I'm like, here's what I'm thinking. Why would the hunters and enforcers essentially kidnap a vampire? You know, Finn is saying that Fiyero is a good dude, won't do anything. This clan has offered the town its protection. It doesn't make sense that Fiyero would just randomly be like, I'ma go kill some folks. Like, so if that hasn't happened, then he's essentially been kidnapped. What makes Fiyero so special that they decide to kidnap him? Maybe they just wanted a vampire. Who knows? But I think Camille would like to establish what's going on with this guy. Why do you think they would take Fiyero specifically, if you're so sure he's innocent? He shrugs, clearly quite confident in his theory. Because he's valuable. He's an empath, a powerful one. If he saw something he wasn't supposed to, or even if they just managed to overpower him and get him alone. I rarely let my clan members patrol by themselves, regardless of our supposedly stable relationship with the enforcers of this town. But I was stupid, and Fiyero is a good sweet talker. He sensed someone in distress in the woods, so I allowed it. Therefore, if anything has happened to him, it's my fault. Finn prides himself on being the opposite of his sire, and I can see that this is eating away at him. You can't place the blame on yourself. You didn't know. Plus, if he is as valuable as you say he is, his eyes light up when they meet mine, his fingers twitching upon the surface of the desk. Then they could be using him, so he's still alive. I smile in return, tilting my head this way and that. Well, ish. He laughs, and I can't help but join him. So you'll check for me? I nod. I will. And I'm very glad that we do get the option to ask about this too. The information on Finn's sire is sparse outside of the fact that he was notorious and cruel, and I wonder how such a seemingly kind man could have followed him for that long. Call it morbid curiosity. Do you mind talking about him? About Levi? Finn grimaces, folding his arms across his broad chest. His posture loses its usual confidence. I suppose. I take a seat upon his bed as he pulls out his desk chair. The first thing I can think to ask him is loaded, but I need to understand. Why did you stay with him for so long? That is a loaded question. I can guess. It's like It's like asking someone who was in an abusive relationship, oh, well, why did you stay with them? And the reason why they stay is because they think they can't leave. And I know the gut instinct is like, oh, well, that's stupid. Were you locked in there? Like, these people have families, they have friends, there's the police. Like, why didn't they go do any of that? And it's one of the first things an abuser will do is, well, first they cut off friends and family. They kind of make it an us against them kind of thing, like, oh, your family doesn't approve of me, they're going to try and control you, so you should break away from them. So you're separated from your family, then they cut you off from your friends because, like, oh, your friends are taking away time from us when we could be together. Like, why do you want to spend time with your friends rather than me? Do you really want to be in a relationship with me? How could you do this to me? And then they just wear you down to the point where you kind of feel like, I can't do anything except stay. There is nothing out there for me. I can't go to the police. They'd never believe me. I don't have my friends or my family anymore, so what are they gonna do? There's nothing I can do except stay. It's kind of like a learned helplessness, if you will. And so that's why people in abusive relationships stay. I would assume it would be a very similar situation with Finn and Levi. He looks at me wide-eyed for a beat before he manages to formulate a response.
I don't know if I can answer that. I still truly do not know. He was good at making sure you had nothing left to go home to. So he was all that I had. I'm not the kind of man who does well with loneliness.
Yeah, that is a very typical response of an abuse survivor, after the fact. Why did you stay? I don't know. It's very rare that they can say, like, oh, for this reason. As I say, it starts off with little things. Cutting off your friends, cutting off your family, wearing you down. So then by the time big things are happening, like full out, like abuse, the person is in such a state where it seems normal. It seems like, well, yeah, of course I deserve to be punched. Of course I deserve to be kicked and slapped and have cigarettes put out on me. Like, of course I do. Like, this makes sense. This is how the world works. It's very sad. It is. Sad isn't even the word. Sad is too tame. Oof. Yeah, and I also find that interesting. I'm not the kind of man who does well with loneliness. Because that's the other thing. Abusers are very good at... They're very good at finding people with manipulatable flaws. If you get what I'm saying. So, like, in Finn's case, he doesn't do well with loneliness. Levi's like, oh, I can manipulate that. Because if he thinks I'm all he has, he'll never leave. Because he can't cope with being lonely. A wry smile crosses his lips, but Finn looks impossibly sad. What did he take from you? Excuse me! How dare? We'll just ignore that. What did he take from you? He swallows thickly, casting his gaze to the side.
Everything. He took my fiancé, killed him right in front of me before he took my own life. I was an orphan, and I didn't exactly have many friends.
He was vulnerable.
Gabriel was truly all I had. He destroyed our home, all of our memories, even took my name from me. He took it all, and he did everything to make sure that I needed him. I followed him like a lost puppy for centuries.
The abuser will make the victim entirely codependent, entirely dependent on them for everything. So not only do you have the fact that they're so broken down that the abuse seems normal, but when the abuser is kind, when they're doing those nice things, the victim will feel so grateful. Like, oh, he bought me flowers. Oh, he's making me dinner. Isn't it like, oh, he's so nice. He's so good to me. He keeps me so well. So what if I have to deal with a few black eyes? Like, it... Did you ever try to escape? When you found others? He nods.
Many times. I had a few periods of freedom, but he always found me. He tended to collect vampires with abilities like Fiero and myself. Maybe to make up for the fact that, aside from his advanced age, he was truly unremarkable.
And now? He's dead, and you're free. You seem to be managing well for someone who endured all of that. He sighs, rubbing the back of his neck with his iron hand.
I'm trying to shape myself into the man I always wanted to be. Before the whole being undead thing. I try not to dwell on things that happened to me. I was bitter for long enough, but I cannot change any of it. All I can do is be the opposite of what he wanted me to be.
Good man. I smile as I observe him. I register how comfortable I feel in his home. The thought of stepping into the den of a clan before all of this would have set me on edge, but now? You're doing a great job, Finn. His mouth curls into an earnest grin. Thank you, Camille. I give you permission to kick my ass if I ever dare step out of line. Duly noted. So, what is it you'd like me to do exactly? Well, no one knows this town quite as well as you. I was hoping you'd have some secret little passageway tucked away for me to use. There are wards and other nasty little tricks in place to stop people like you, like us, getting in. I'll worry about that. Now, about that passageway? His grin is wicked, and I think I have my answer. I'm your guy. Just say when and I'll be there. If you need anything else, just come running. I bid Finn farewell, and now I only need to find one more friend. I saved the most stubborn till last. Hey, Alkar, nice. Alkar is waiting for me when I return to the wolf. It doesn't surprise me anymore when I catch his eye across the tavern, where he's been nursing a mug of ale, clearly pouting. That the pout disappears when he sees me surely counts for something, though the way his lips thin instantly makes me think perhaps not. He gets up, movement slow and deliberate, and I remain by the door for a moment, wondering if, hilariously, he's somehow trying to not scare me.
Took you long enough. Was wondering if the bad shit got to you.
Ah, no, I'm all good, Chuck. Do you need something? Yes, actually. Alkar rubs at the back of his neck and gives me a critical once-over, frown deepening. Then he glances behind his shoulder at the sparsely populated tavern. The 3 or 4 people lounging about seem deeply engaged with their own conversation, but I nod in understanding. My room? Alkar barks a short, scornful laugh.
So your superior can come knocking on the door and catch us? Not a chance.
Are you saying I'm trying to ambush you? He frowns at me, his tail flicking and then going still. His voice is low and steady when he answers. No, I'm not saying that, but I'm not keen on taking chances right now. Tell me you agree. As much as I loathe to abandon the promise of a horizontal, not a bare rock surface to lie down on, close my eyes and try to process the day, he's right. And if Alkar has any more information, any more at all, I want to hear it. I need to hear it. All right then, where? The woods. The woods where hunters have been murdered. Great. The deep, dark woods where I stumbled across a nasty youngling no more than a day ago? Alkar rolls his eyes.
Would you prefer the graveyard where those damn Woodridge twins can probably hear every word we say? Not all of the woods are dangerous. I would know. I live there. Now, I ask that you trust me.
Okay, fair dues. Why should I? Of course. Ooh. Alkar hasn't given us any reason not to trust him. He's been standoffish, but he hasn't been... He has been aggressive, but it's like in a playful, kind of challenging manner rather than like, oh shit, I actually think this guy's gonna fight me kind of way. So off to the murder woods. I incline my head in understanding and step aside, inviting him to take his leave through the door first. Alkar doesn't move immediately. He stays where he is, his arms crossed, and he regards me with a strange expression. It's not unreadable, but almost as though he doesn't quite know what expression he should be making. Is something the matter? You're one trusting motherfucker, aren't you? A little bit. I scowl at him. You and your friends in this lovely little town aren't giving me a lot of choices. I expect another eye roll, a scoff, a dismissive wave. Instead, Alkar inclines his head, and there's something almost like guilt in his grimace. Let's go. Lunaris is a cold and lonely shell of its daylight form tonight, and I almost run to keep up with how quickly, though sure-footedly, Alkar moves through back alleys. The chill sinks into my bones, and, unbidden, I wish I wasn't here. I wish I wasn't following a half-werewolf into the dark unknown towards more mystery. Omen's confession is still ringing in my ears, as do so many other things. Did you know that Omen is... Alkar shakes his head, his wolf ears flattening. Not here. Another turn and we've stepped beyond the town's boundary. Trees loom above us, moonlight flooding through the bare branches to afford us some light. Alkar leads me a little further away until the roofs of the houses are barely visible, then turns to me.
A little while ago, I got into a fight with one of your hunters.
He jerks his chin towards the town.
Well, not one of yours exactly, I suppose, since you just got here and all, but one of theirs. Some bloke, don't even remember his face all that well. I was...
drunk? Jesus! Alkar pauses for a moment, rubbing at his chin almost nervously, his eyes narrowed. But then he shakes himself of it and continues.
It was during a full moon. I had an argument with my sister. Didn't go well.
I apologize for assuming that you were drunk at the time. Okay, that's fair. He grimaces at the memory.
And when I transform, especially if I'm upset, my control isn't as good as it could be. But I know I didn't kill him. Would have damn well remembered that. If you ripped a man apart with your own claws and teeth. But when I came to, he knocked me out, I guess. You hunters and your annoying little gadgets. Your enforcer friends were already swarming over us like hornets. But there was no blood. Not mine, not his.
That doesn't mean you didn't hurt him. Alkar gives me a look.
Okay, smartass. The point is that he vanished. Poof. The enforcers, dragged me off to their fun little dungeon and kept me there for fuck knows how long. A week, I think. Maybe more. And then they just poked and prodded me a bit. Then they let me go. Felt like they wanted to do more. Like they had plans for me, but maybe it was too dangerous to just snuff me, I guess. I know too many people. Ezra, Finn. But here's a question for you. What do you do when a creature hurts a hunter so bad he apparently isn't walking around anymore?
Also, whilst I remember, I'm gonna grab that. I press my lips together. Nothing pleasant, I know that much. Assuming the creature in question was allowed to escape with their life at all. But sometimes they are let go. Marks that are too delicately tied to the other... Excuse me. I'm sorry, I misread that completely. Marks that are too delicately tied to the order of things to be freely snuffed, as Alkar had so elegantly put it. But surely if he wounded a hunter so terribly, he would still have been in the dungeons. Perhaps Finn or Ezra parlayed for your release. But Alkar is shaking his head.
They didn't. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you hunters don't get retirement leave till you can't walk on two legs anymore. And even then...
Well, there are always prosthetics. Alkar barks a sharp, bitter laugh and shakes his head. But neither he nor I find humour in it. I know. He's quiet for a moment, running a hand through his hair, messing with his clothes, fidgeting, nervous. I step back a pace to let him collect himself. No use pushing him for anything now, not when he's already so open with telling me everything he knows. I didn't kill that hunter. I didn't. I wouldn't forget something like that, and I... Enough to never do it by accident. Never. Alkar's frown is deep, but his words are as quietly fierce as they are pleading. Oh, why is that a flirt? Why can't we just believe the guy? I'm gonna go for this, because it's the only other option I have, but that's unfortunate that we can't just trust him without flirting. Then what happened to that hunter? Do you not know who he is at all? Infinite. Finn laughs as his head connects with jagged stone, and he's too far gone to care about the sting or the gentle throb that settles at the base of his skull. Not when he's in Gabriel's arms, after they've suffered so long apart. Gabriel kisses him with fervour, a hand in his hair and another at his hip, his fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. It's exactly what Finn needs. To feel. His head spins and Gabriel's kisses taste like whiskey. Kisses that burn, kisses that linger. Finn hates whiskey. But tasting it upon Gabriel's tongue is the exception. I almost want to leave the uniform on, Gabriel whispers. His voice as deep and as pleasing as it always is, and always has been. Finn bites his lip as clever hands find the hem of his jacket and tug it free of his trousers. "I'd rather you did leave it on. I don't fancy being naked in a filthy alleyway," he chuckles. "If you absolutely cannot wait until we get home." "I cannot," Gabriel purrs, reaching to cup Finn's face almost delicately, like he's this infinitely precious thing, something cherished. "I missed you too much." Pretty silver eyes burn into Finn's gold, and with a look that conveys everything he's thinking, his thoughts always written all over that impossibly handsome face. His happiness is evident in his dimples when he smiles, and Finn comes to the conclusion that life can't get much better than this. "Gabriel," he says, a whisper, the word laced with love and unwavering devotion. "You're so gorgeous," Gabriel says. Their hips pressed close and seemed tight, everything about him setting Finn alight. Finn feels his cheeks heat, his skin prickling. He's so alive as their lips meet in another crushing kiss, all tongue and teeth and unabashed laughter that echoes around them. Gabriel tenses suddenly, pulling away with a sharp, pained inhale. Finn thinks nothing of it, leaning with a quiet whimper to protest the loss of that mouth against his own, only to open his eyes and find Gabriel's lips stained crimson, his eyes wide and scared, an expression unlike any, one he's not seen on that face before. Gabriel crumbles, a hand clutching his chest, trembling fingers coming away slick with blood as he desperately fists Finn shut. He coughs, a painful splutter, and Finn follows him to the ground where he crashes. He sees the red that blooms upon his shirt, and gone is the warm tan of his skin, now replaced with sickly white. Gabriel tries to speak, but Finn hushes him, holding him tight to his chest. "Stay with me, okay? You're going to be all right." Frantic hands search his torso, fingers fumbling with his shirt buttons to part the sodden fabric, and Finn forces himself to hold on to his wavering threads of hope. Coldness creeps into his chest when he sees that the flow of blood isn't stopping, the wound a grave one, something fatal. The way Gabriel smiles at him says he knows it too. "Stop and look at me," Gabriel says, reaching up with a bloodied hand to press his cooling fingers to Finn's tear-streaked cheek, his touch a gentle, tender thing. Then he dares to smile, that brilliant smile, and Finn commits it to memory. "You'll be just fine." Finn chokes on a sob, curling closer, holding him tighter. "Not without you, I love you." His hand falls from Finn's face and Gabriel goes limp in his arms, the light and life fading from his eyes. Finn cries, stopping the fruitless pressure he applies to the wound. He cradles Gabriel's face with both hands and screams again. But this time there are no words, just agony, pure and unfettered, like a dying animal. Finn has known agony before, in being abandoned, in punches to the face and broken ribs, but this was an ungodly kind. Cruelty without rationale, a man witnessing his soulmate's untimely death. He lets out another sob, his heart shot and shredded. "Gabriel!" Cold, firm fingers curl around his throat, appearing out of the shadows that surround them, and Finn is pulled from the ground and away from Gabriel with startling ease. His back hits the same wall Gabriel had pushed him up against, the bite of the brick against his spine harsh, and he finds eyes that burn a violent red in the darkness. eyes of the man that did this, that took Gabriel, that will steal his chance to mourn from him, as well as everything else. Then a flash of white, a sharp, deadly grin. You do well not to struggle. He can barely see through the unending film of tears, but he claws and kicks and screams, his fist connecting with a solid jaw with a hard crack. The man doesn't falter, doesn't even flinch. Those fingers curl tighter around his throat, and suddenly Finn can't speak, almost can't breathe, and the thing that has him laughs wickedly. Though that laugh dies when he leans in and presses his cold lips to Finn's throat. And then all he feels is pain, white hot, blinding, debilitating pain. He stops struggling and sinks into the sun euphoria, and the physical hurt overrides the guttural emotion, the ache that's threatening to pry open his chest to hollow him out. He's almost grateful. He grants himself a final glance at Gabriel where he lies, cold and alone on the ground, and he welcomes death. 48 hours later, he wakes with a scream that tears from somewhere deep inside his chest, one that sounds inherently inhuman and leaves his throat raw. He's boxed in and buried. Alive? Is he alive? And his instincts kick in as he reaches up and frantically begins to claw at silken fabric. He digs and punches, his nails snapping and his skin splitting. His fingers are cracked and bloody and ruined when he finally finds dirt. Eventually, he breaks the surface, the freshly covered grave still wet as he pulls himself free. His wild eyes soon lock onto the gravestone that sits proudly before him as the world slowly comes back into focus. Finnegan Atanase Ionescu, brave soldier, loving friend. He tries to stand, stumbling over nothing, his legs weak, and he lands face first in the pile of dirt that covers the grave beside him. It's freshly covered just like his own, and he can feel him. He knows who lays beneath the earth. Gabriel. He crawls forward, carefully tracing the letters that are lovingly etched into the stone. His name, his beloved. And then he's screaming again, something cold and thick trickling down his cheeks. His eyes sting as violent sobs rock his body and make him heave, and he expels the contents of his stomach upon the wet grass. He tastes copper on his tongue and sees blood staining the ground. Reaching up to wipe the wet from his lips, then he touches his cheek with his other hand. His fingers come away red. He's rotting. Sir, what are you doing out here this late? His throat burns and the smell that hits him like a freight train makes his mouth water. He must be mad sitting in all that dirt. He doesn't look well. Finn turns to find a petite woman standing before him, her brow furrowed as she cautiously edges closer, and her lips might not be moving, but she's so loud. What's wrong with him? Maybe I should leave, or get the police, or... Shut up, he mutters, pushing his fingers into his matted hair and tugging, blood sliding slick against his temples. She pauses, her pulse thrumming loudly, too loud. He can hear her blood pumping generously through her veins, and the burn in his throat reaches a fever pitch. It's unbearable, and he needs to. I didn't... Are you okay? Oh my god, your eyes! She breathes, her voice cracking and terrified as she slowly takes a step back. Before he knows what he's doing, Finn has her pinned beneath him, his teeth at her throat. They sink into her supple flesh with ease, and he bites and drinks, and he can't stop. The first rush of blood against his tongue is like nothing he's ever tasted, a vibrant, sweet copper ambrosia, and he feels strong. He drinks until her delicate fingers no longer claw at his shirt, until her heart no longer flutters in her chest, until she goes limp beneath him, until there's nothing left. He releases his grip on her body, looking down into her vacant eyes, and he wonders if she has a family. He feels little remorse, strangely, feeling little of anything, and he drops her and crawls away, leaning against the gravestone that holds his name. He sinks his hand into the dirt of Gabriel's grave, letting it fall through his fingers, and he looks up at the stars, and he cries. And you know what? I'm going to leave this episode off right here. So, please remember to like if you enjoyed, leave a comment below, and if you wanted to subscribe, it would be very much appreciated. I've been Callista. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next episode.